Indie Comics Deep Dive with Mona and Sam. Welcome back, comic fans, to another Indie Comics Deep Dive with me, Sam, and my co-host, Mona.
Hey, everyone.
Today, we're saddling up for a spoiler-filled deep dive into RedMask Rides Again, #1.
So, if you haven't read issue 1 yet, maybe pause us and come back after you've had a chance to experience it for yourself.
Definitely. We're going full speed ahead into spoiler territory, so consider yourself warned. And before we get started, if you're loving these deep dives into indie comics, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. All right, Mona, RedMask Rides Again. Where do we even begin with a character like RedMask? He's got this long, wild history, right?
Yeah, he does. RedMask is super unique because he's actually rooted in real life. Like, imagine a comic book starring a real cowboy actor. Well, that's actually how he started back in 1948.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah. Tim Holt was this comic series about the actor, and it was filled with, all those classic Western adventures. But then, around 1950, issue number 20, things took a bit of a turn.
What happened? Did Tim Holt get tired of being a cowboy and decide to join the circus or something?
Haha, no, not quite. It was more like the publishers decided to tap into this new trend that was sweeping the comic book world. Masked heroes. So they gave Tim Holt a secret identity as the Red Mask.
So they basically gave a real-life movie star a masked alter ego in the comics.
Yeah.
That's kind of meta, even by today's standards.
Right. It was this super clever way to appeal to fans of both Westerns and the rising popularity of these masked vigilantes. They were all the rage back then.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked. Red Mask became this unique hero, battling outlaws and even facing off against some, let's say, supernatural villains.
Oh, yeah. Red Mask wasn't afraid to get a little weird with it. But let's talk about the team that's bringing him back for a new generation.
Okay, yeah, Lenovations Press, right. They're the indie publisher behind RedMask Rides Again.
Yeah. And I love their motto, comics done for fun. It's not just about money for them, it's about passion projects, creating comics that they genuinely enjoy.
I get that. It speaks to that indie spirit, right? It's
Yeah.
not about churning out comics for the masses. It's about making something they believe in.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got this great team of artists, including Phil Miller, who actually, fun fact, sparked the idea for RedMask Rides Again. He and Len were at a convention, and a fan asked them why they only published their main series, Section 12.
And Phil was like, hey, let's branch out, try something different. But I read that Len wasn't really a Western fan at first.
Right. Not his usual genre. But then his fascination with public domain characters comes in. He loves bringing those forgotten heroes back to life. And that's where RedMask comes in.
Makes sense. So we've got a passionate indie publisher, a talented artist with a vision, and a public domain character who's ready for a comeback.
It really sums up their whole vibe. Like, you can tell they're passionate about these characters and genuinely having a blast.
Totally agree. All right, so let's actually dive into the story now. Desperate Journey, issue #1 of RedMask Rides Again. Mona, set the scene for us. What's going on?
Okay, so picture this. The issue opens with RedMask at the reins of a stagecoach racing against time.
Okay, classic Western setup so far.
Right. But here's the twist. He's got a wounded man named Sully beside him, and they're being chased by this relentless gang of outlaws.
Ooh, okay, so the stakes are high from the get-go.
Totally. And it's not just about escaping the bad guys either. They're carrying this life-saving serum for a little girl in Whisper Falls, and her life literally depends on them making it in time.
So I've got Sully's life on the line, this little girl's fate hanging in the balance, and these outlaws hot on their trail.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah, talk about a bad day to be RedMask. But what's interesting? He's not just some gunslinger blasting away at every outlaw he sees.
Oh yeah, he's got that whole non-lethal approach.
Exactly. He's all about using his skills and his whip to disarm and disable the outlaws, but never with deadly intent.
Which makes those outlaws even scarier, right?
Yeah, but-
Because they're not pulling any punches. You're constantly wondering if RedMask's restraint is going to backfire on them.
Oh, absolutely. And just when you think it's all over for him, out of nowhere comes Black Phantom and White Indian leading a posse of Indians, driving those outlaws back.
Talk about a cavalry. I loved Black Phantom's entrance, by the way. That
Yeah.
line, keep riding, RedMask, we got your backside.
Ha ha ha. She's got some great lines. She brings this much needed bit of humor to a pretty intense situation. Anyway, they finally make it to Whisper Falls, deliver the serum, and then bam, the sheriff arrests Black Phantom, who, get this, has a price on her head.
Classic Western setup, right?
Yeah.
And then, to top it all off, a giant spotlight falls from the sky, total cliffhanger ending.
And then the biggest shocker of all, it was all a movie set.
Right. RedMask and Black Phantom, actors filming a Western, the whole thing was just a movie.
I love that twist. It completely subverts your expectations.
Yeah.
And I love that little detail with the director wearing a Paragon Pictures t-shirt. It adds to the realism of the whole reveal.
Yeah. But right when you think you've got everything figured out, tragedy strikes. A freak accident on set leaves Kip, the actor playing RedMask, seriously injured.
And the issue ends with Black Phantom's raw emotion. And that question, what happens now? It makes you desperate for the next issue.
It's a brutal cliffhanger, both emotionally and for the story itself. You know, that movie set twist, just so brilliant, like throws you for a loop, you know?
Yeah, you think you're in for a classic Western, and then bam, everything you thought you knew gets flipped on its head.
Right. And it really makes you think about Red Mask and Black Phantom differently. Like, we saw them being all heroic, but now we gotta wonder, was that just part of their performance, or are they really like that deep down?
Yeah, it raises some interesting questions. Are they just playing roles, or are they genuinely good people?
Exactly. It adds this whole other layer of complexity to the story. And you know, it wouldn't be an Indie Comics deep dive without talking about those Easter eggs. Remember all those classic Magazine Enterprises characters like the Avenger, Presto Kid, Funny Man?
Oh yeah, they weren't just random cameos either. They felt like intentional hints, right?
Yeah.
Like clues to this bigger world Lenovations Press might be building.
I think so, yeah. It definitely makes you wonder who else might show up and what other forgotten characters they might bring back.
And they've already proven they can do it right. I mean, their work on the Avenger has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to think what they have planned for RedMask and this whole universe they're creating.
For sure. Oh, and we got to talk about the art, too. I mean, Phil Miller's work is just incredible. You can really feel the energy and motion in every panel, especially during that stagecoach chase.
Yeah, his red mask is so iconic. It's just classic comic book imagery.
And the colors. Nimesh Morarji and Perea Pillai just bring this depth and atmosphere to the story.
And even the lettering, you know? Yeah. Len Mihailovich, he doesn't just write the words, he makes them part of the art.
It all comes together so well, right? It's clear that everyone involved put their heart and soul into this comic. It's a real passion project.
Speaking of which, if anyone listening wants to check out RedMask Rides Again, number one, where can they find it?
Well, you can get it directly from Lenovationspress.com, or you can find it on IndiePlanet, DriveThruComics.com, and Global Comics.
Perfect. We'll put all those links in the show notes.
Yeah.
And while you're at it, check out Lenovations Press's website too, right? You can read the first issues of Section 12 Flashback and Section 12 Declassified for free online.
Yeah. And don't forget about their Patreon. If you're really loving their work and want to support them, you can get access to all sorts of cool stuff like behind-the-scenes content, early releases.
Yeah, they've got both free and paid memberships. We'll have that link in the show notes as well. All right, before we wrap up our deep dive into RedMask Rides Again, number one, what are your final takeaways, Mona?
Well, I think what really struck me is how they take a classic Western and add this whole meta layer to it. You know, like it makes you question the nature of storytelling itself.
Yeah, it's like they're saying that even in comics, there's room for introspection and for examining the stories we tell.
Exactly. And beyond all that, it's just plain fun. It's an adventure, and you can really feel the creator's passion for these characters. It makes you want to jump right into their world.
Yeah, it's like they took these old characters and breathed new life into them, made them feel relevant again.
And that's what I love about indie comics. You know, there's this freedom, this willingness to try new things and tell stories you wouldn't see from the bigger publishers.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a comic that's got action, humor, and some really clever twists, definitely check out RedMask Rides Again, number one. It's a great read.
And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into RedMask with us, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future indie comic deep dives. That brings us to the end of this episode of Indie Comics Deep Dive with Mona and Sam.
We hope you enjoyed the ride.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep reading, and keep those imaginations firing.
See you the next deep dive.